I stood outside the church clutching the small envelope in my pocket. The air was heavy with music, laughter, and the sound of clinking glasses. It was my daughter's wedding day, a moment I had dreamed of since she was a child. But things had not been easy between us, especially after the divorce from her mother. My ex-wife Julia had turned much of the family against me over the years. Still, I showed up because a father belongs at his daughter's wedding no matter what. When I walked into the reception hall, heads turned and whispers rippled through the crowd. Some cousins smirked, others openly laughed, nudging each other as if I were some unwelcome guest. "Look who decided to crawl out of his hole," one of them sneered loud enough for me to hear. I forced a smile, though my chest burned with humiliation. I found an empty chair at the back and sat quietly watching my daughter dance with her new husband. No one came to greet me, no one offered me food or even a drink. I might as well have been invisible in a room full of people who once called me family. But I stayed because, despite their scorn, I wanted to see her happy. Then, just as the music shifted and the laughter grew, a hush fell over the hall. The doors creaked open and a tall stranger walked inside, dressed in a sharp suit. No one recognized him at first, his face unfamiliar to the crowd. But the moment his eyes scanned the room, people began to murmur nervously. He walked with purpose, his steps echoing across the polished floor. When he reached my table, he extended a hand and addressed me respectfully by name. The laughter that once mocked me died instantly as every eye turned toward us. I shook his hand, confused, yet sensing something important was about to unfold. He introduced himself as Mr. Callahan, a lawyer from a respected firm in the city. He announced in a clear, steady voice that he had documents to deliver. Whispers grew louder as the family craned their necks to hear what he would say next. Mr. Callahan revealed that months before I had made a quiet investment that had blossomed beyond expectation. The hall gasped when he explained that the company had gone public, making me a wealthy man overnight. Every relative who once mocked me now sat in stunned silence, their forks frozen in mid-air. Julia's smug smile vanished as her wine glass trembled in her hand. My daughter stopped dancing, her eyes wide as she turned toward me. Mr. Callahan handed me the final papers confirming ownership of properties, accounts, and shares. I thanked him calmly, tucking the papers into my jacket as the weight of the moment settled over the room. The same cousins who laughed at me now avoided my gaze, ashamed of their cruelty. Julia's sister whispered something about how no one had known the truth. But the truth was, I never needed them to know, I only needed to live with dignity. I rose slowly from my chair, my voice steady as I addressed the room. I told them I had walked in alone, but I was never truly empty-handed. Because while they mocked, I had built something real with patience and sacrifice. Then I turned to my daughter, her eyes filling with tears as she ran into my arms. The crowd erupted, not in laughter, but in silence too heavy to break. Julia's face hardened, but her control over the family crumbled before everyone. The band resumed playing, though the energy of the room had shifted completely. No longer was I the outcast or the fool, I was the father who never stopped fighting quietly. I danced with my daughter that night, holding her hand with pride in my chest. For the first time in years, she looked at me not with doubt, but with respect. The relatives who once mocked me lined up to offer shallow apologies. I accepted their words politely, but in my heart I knew their loyalty had always been shallow. What mattered was the bond rebuilt with my daughter under the bright lights of her wedding. The stranger who walked in had not just delivered papers, he had delivered justice. He had turned a night of humiliation into a night of vindication. And as I left the hall later that evening, the whispers followed me out into the cool air. But they were no longer whispers of mockery, they were whispers of awe and regret. I smiled to myself, knowing that dignity, patience, and truth had silenced every cruel laugh. Because in the end, it was not wealth that shocked them, it was the strength they had overlooked all along.